Incredible news. Incredible news. The European Union's Parliament just passed a law that established what's called its Return Directive, where it will set the groundwork for mass deportations.
We move. We go to a particular place whereby our destiny calls. We move because we have something in us. We move because we have potential in us. We are the future, we are the dream, we are the nation, we are part of this. We are the future, we are the dream.
Yeah! The European Union actually passed its Return Directive. You know what that is, guys? You know what that is? That's the sweet, sweet music of remigration. What it is the European Union has set up the legal framework for them to set up transit hubs or remigration hubs or return hubs in third-party countries, doing exactly what the United States is doing right now in South Sudan. So, many of these migrants who've been committing all kinds of horrific crimes on the streets of various European capitals and not having to worry about being deported because if they go back to Afghanistan, they'll be persecuted. Well, guess what? They're now going to be deported to maybe somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. So yeah, not going to be so comfortable now, are you?
Adopted. The first reading of Parliament is closed. Okay, we move to the next item on the agenda, the report by Mrs. Brigmont on the EU-Pakistan Agreement modification of concessions on tariff rate quotes. Vote on consent by roll call vote. The vote is open. The vote is closed. We move to the... It's adopted.
EU lawmakers approve migration reform, allowing for creation of return hubs. The text notably enables nations to open deportation centers outside the EU's borders, where migrants with no right to stay could be sent. Denmark, Austria, Greece, Germany, the Netherlands, and others have already been exploring options to set hubs up. European lawmakers gave final approval on Wednesday, June 17th, to tougher migration rules that will grant authorities much broader detention powers and allow for the creation of deportation centers outside the bloc. The 418 to 218 vote in Strasbourg was one of the last hurdles for a reform that has sailed through the EU's notoriously long legislative process as Brussels and member states respond to political pressure to curb migration. It was welcomed with cheers from right and far-right parliamentarians and chants of "shame on you" from the left of the Assembly, underscoring deep division over a text severely criticized by human rights groups. This regulation tells everybody that it is us and not the smugglers deciding who can stay in the European Union and who must leave, said Magnus Brunner, the EU's Commissioner for Migration. The text notably enables nations to open return hubs outside the EU's borders where migrants have no right to stay could be sent, something a group of countries is raring to do. Denmark, Austria, Greece, Germany, the Netherlands, and others have already been exploring options to set hubs up. Our goal is to conclude the first agreements for the creation of these structures in 2026 so that they are operational from 2027, Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said on Sunday. Until recently a fringe idea, the plan got further endorsement Tuesday when a majority of EU nations agreed to seek to secure EU money to run such centers in a move opposed by France and Spain. European governments have sought a tougher stance amid a souring of public opinion on migration that has fueled far-right electoral gains across the continent. With migrant arrivals down in 2025, the focus in Brussels has turned to improving the repatriation system, which currently sees less than 30% of people ordered to leave actually returned to their country of origin. Right-wing French EU lawmaker Francois Xavier Bellamy called the vote a historic step for Europe and proof that change is possible, adding, "We are not condemned to powerlessness." Besides return hubs, the new measures establish a strict obligation for migrants subject to expulsion to leave and cooperate with authorities to that end. Those who do not, or who pose a security risk, or are thought to be at risk of absconding, can be detained for up to 2 years. Such provisions have sparked an outcry from human rights groups and left-wing politicians. Miriam Nyman of the Catholic humanitarian aid group Caritas said the changes risk stigmatizing and criminalizing migrants, fueling polarization at a time when our societies urgently need greater cohesion. Under the new rules, authorities would be allowed to search third country nationals, their homes, or other relevant premises, and seize personal belongings in their push to ensure the return of irregular migrants. Alessandro Zan of the center-left S&D group called the reform a dark chapter for Europe. It paves the way for forced deportations, increasingly invasive Trump-era ICE-style checks, and the normalization and detention even for people who committed no crime. He said, referring to the heavy-handed practices used by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the United States under President Donald Trump. Proponents say return hubs, which would serve either as the final destination or as a transfer centers for those expelled, could facilitate repatriations and act as a deterrent for would-be irregular migrants, but critics question their effectiveness, pointing to the hurdles faced by similar projects, and compare them to legal black holes that could see migrants stranded in limbo with little oversight. Britain abandoned the scheme to deport undocumented migrants to Rwanda, while Italian-run facilities to process migrants in Albania have faced legal challenges and a slow uptake. EU member states will be able to deport migrants and asylum seekers to so-called return hubs that may effectively serve as offshore detention centers and have reportedly been discussed with rights-abusing countries like Rwanda or Uzbekistan, said Iskra Kurova of Human Rights Watch. The law now needs a formal green light from member states, which have already provisionally endorsed it, to come into force. Most new measures will apply immediately after that, and some provisions 12 months later. And of course, these leftists are having a meltdown. Manus Carlisle, a dark moment that's likely to go down in EU history. Centrist ally with far right to establish detention centers for migrant families to chance of send them back. The left replies, "Shame on you." And then Manus Carlisle says, "If you're going to add a racist comment in support of deporting kids, then show your face and name, you cowards." And I responded with, "Hey Magnus, you beep. My name is Brandon Thomas Wright, and I say send the child beep back to their third world beep holes. What are you gonna do, punk? I'm calling your bluff, you weak coward." And I obviously sent him a picture of my passport because you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm not a coward like you leftists.
The problem is, though, that is when populism and rhetoric comes into it, isn't it, Marta? That the voice of the people is not perhaps an accurate reflection of the situation or the issue or the means to solve it.
No, absolutely. And I think the return regulation that the previous speaker just referred to, I think it cannot be seen as a humane solution. We see it as a systematic dismantling, if anything, of protections and a significant setback.
This is that presenter. This reptilian visage staring at you has nearly accomplished what Attila and the Huns Genghis Khan and the Mongolians and the Ottoman Turks could never do. And that's destroy our civilization. But the question remains, are we going to be able to undo the damage that's already been done? Now, they're going to try to reverse these migratory patterns. Believe you me, because these politicians know what's coming up next. If this can't be fixed by votes, it's going to be fixed in other ways because it's an untenable situation. There's no way that these two populations can continue living side by side and there be peace. Now, I'm not prescribing violence. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm just basically giving my prediction as to what's going to happen.